Hi there, and welcome to my video that is about how I was able to get sober and how I'm able to stay sober. In my first video, I went into a lot of detail as to how I went from a skinny kid to South African champion bodybuilder, then to a drug addict, and now to studying theology and psychology and obviously being sober as well. But I realized that I just went into a lot of gruesome detail about my past dark life. And I didn't really give a lot of information as to how I was able to finally get sober and how I'm able to stay sober now. And that's what I aim to do in this video. I love what Brandon Novak says. You'll hear me referencing him a lot. He says that his recovery comes first before anything else. Because if it doesn't, then everything else in his life falls apart. And I'm at a place in my life right now where I don't have to necessarily remind myself of it anymore. Recovery is just a part of who I am, where at the beginning of my early recovery, I needed people and I needed an institution to remind me of these things. That's why we need a rehab. It's not there to punish you. It's not there to tell you what a bad person you are, what a moral failure you are. A rehab is there so that you can be safe from your own decisions, because you cannot trust yourself at the beginning of recovery. We've proven that to ourselves countless times. Because every time we've made these promises to ourselves, to our loved ones, and to God that we'll never use again, and the second we get an inch of freedom, we're back on the wagon. So at the beginning, you need people, you need an institution, you need support, and you still need support along the way. Even where I'm at now, I still go for therapy. But what I'm just trying to say is recovery has grown into such a big part of me, I want to say to a similar degree to what my addiction was. And I'm just going to go through the things that I still continue to do that's part of my recovery that helps me to stay sober. And I'll also give a bit of insight as to how I got sober as well. If you haven't watched the first video and you want to hear all the gruesome details about how I got to being a South African champion bodybuilder to a drug addict, you're more than welcome to go watch the video. It'll give this video a bit more context. But for me, the first thing that I had to do to get to recovery, or to start recovering, is to admit to myself that I am an addict. And that was one of the most difficult things that I've ever done in my entire life, and I've ran ultra marathons, I've won large competitive bodybuilding shows. There is very little things as difficult as admitting to yourself that you are an addict and that you need help. Well, for me, maybe not for everyone, but for me, that was a very difficult thing to do. And that is why step 1 of the 12 steps is so important, because step 1 says that we admitted to ourselves that we are powerless over our addiction and that our lives have become unmanageable. We admitted to ourselves that we are powerless over our addiction and that our lives have become unmanageable. That's such a crucial step, because if you don't do that step, that is the foundation of all the other steps. Because I've realized that my addiction fed a lot off of my ego, and my ego fed a lot off of my addiction. It's almost like you want to be in control, because there's a distrust between reality and between people. So I love what Theo Von also says. He says that even when he knew that he was going to pay the consequences the next day and he was going to hurt himself, at least he was the one hurting himself. It's this weird, strange control that you have over your life, that at least if you know that you're going to be, feeling depressed or feeling a certain way, at least you are the one that's doing it. There's a strange control that's in addiction in that way. And that's why step 1 was so important for me, because I had to learn to let go, because I had such a fixated idea about how my life is supposed to be. And I think that's a lot to do with the world that we live in today, because we live in this grind culture that tells you that you need to set a goal and you need to picture your life a certain way, and then you just need to work hard enough to chase that. And if you work hard enough and persevere enough, then you can get it. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I disagree with that entirely. But I do think that you should give some leeway to the mystery of life and other paths of how life can go. And you shouldn't be so set on just one particular thing, And step 1 meant letting go of that. It meant letting go of the idea of me being a professional bodybuilder and traveling the world and doing that. I had to let go of that because my bodybuilding was also feeding my addiction in a way. I'll speak about that maybe a bit later. But long story short, what I'm trying to say is I had to admit to myself that I'm an addict. And this only came to be after being rehabilitated 7 consecutive times over the span of about, I think, 3 years. Some of them are long-term rehabs, some of them are short-term rehabs. I've been to both. I've been to very expensive rehabs. I was in ARC in Benoni. I don't want to say the wrong amount, but I think it was between 70 and 100,000 Rand for just 3 weeks. I don't know if I've got the number correct. Don't count me on it, but it was a very extreme number, where compared to the rehab where I actually got sober, cost 6,000 Rand a month, compared to between 70 and 100K for 3 weeks. And the rehab that cost 6,000 Rand a month, that's the place where I got sober. It just shows you that I'm not saying that it doesn't matter which rehab you go to, because it does to a certain extent, definitely, but it matters more on your personal decision in yourself. There's people that get sober at the worst places, and there's people that don't get sober at the best places. It's all internal, it really is. And it also depends very much on the people that run the rehab, obviously, the support system that you have there and the help that you have there, and your ability to connect to the people that are there. Because the opposite of addiction is connection. You need to be able to connect with people again. You need to be able to connect with yourself again and with God again. You'll hear me speak about that a lot as well. The first time I heard those words, my eyes, I was bawling. I was just crying like uncontrollably. It was actually in ARC in Benoni, in that short-term rehab center. It's a short piece of me also crying actually at the end of the previous video. But the point I'm trying to make is I had to admit to myself that I'm an addict. And that was a very difficult thing for me to do, because obviously I was a South African champion bodybuilder. I had my own business. I wasn't answering to anyone besides my clients. So I was on top of the world, coming from a small skinny kid that didn't have any friends, well, not a lot of friends at school, to this point. My ego was just through the roof, and to admit to myself that I'm an addict that needs help, it was just like, dude, don't put me low like that. I'm not a scum, I'm not a low life like an addict. And the first time I accepted that was in Barberton Recovery Center. My program manager, I remember he told me, Stefan, you have to understand that you are a drug addict. He said in Afrikaans, het gesê, jy moet verstaan, jy's 'n dwelmverslaafde, jy's 'n verslaafde, jy kort hulp. I don't think out of all the places, I don't know if I've never heard that before, if someone hasn't ever said that to me, so blatantly. But that was the first time that I've actually heard those words and absorbed it openly. And I was like, you know what? Yes, that is the truth. Because at that time, I saw it as a weakness. I saw it as a weakness of character, a lack of willpower, a moral failure. But it's none of those things. I love what Gabor Mate says. He says that addiction is a response to human suffering. It's not a lack of willpower. It's not a moral failure. It's not a weakness of character. And when I started to understand that, I understood it as, this doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It just means that I have, although it's not a disease, but I'm going to use the term a disease, I have a disease that I need to look after. People that have cancer, they go to the hospital to get treatment. Well, most of them. If you have bronchitis, if you have the flu, if you have any of the sicknesses, you say, okay, I need help. And then you go to the hospital, to the doctor to get help. But addiction is the only disease that convinces you that you don't have a disease. So if you tell me that I have addiction as opposed to cancer, bronchitis, or the flu, with the other 3 sicknesses, I'll go to the doctor to get help. But if you tell me I have addiction, I first have to get my fix, so that I can then sit there and figure out why you are delusional enough to think that I'm an addict, because I'm not. That is the extent that addiction takes you to. It pathologizes your mind. And that's why getting into an institution and doing a 12-step program is so important, because you have to rewire your thinking. I'm not a psychologist, and I haven't studied enough of the brain to comment a lot on this. But the best way that I've heard it explained, and the best way that I can explain it to you, is your brain works with neurons, and it sends messages from one neuron to the other neuron. And between these is synapses, the connections between the 2 neurons. And the more you do a certain behavior, the stronger that pathway gets between a certain amount of neurons, the stronger that pathway gets. And the more you repeat it, it builds like a highway. So on your path to happiness, to the place that you feel the best, your escape, the place where you feel content and love and peaceful, if you keep on repeating a behavior to get to that place, whenever you are in a stressful situation and you need to escape, your brain will automatically tell you to take that path. All right, because you've built a highway over the years of either the behavior or the substance. That's why you need to go to an institution or facility to unlearn that highway, to start to teach your brain to take a different route, to break the way of the highway, if that makes sense. That's the best way that I've heard it explained. And when you understand it like that, then you understand why it's not as simple as just saying no. You know, like I said, I was a bodybuilder. I was a South African champion bodybuilder. I've won numerous other also shows that I think will actually give me more credit than SA champs. I've raced ultra marathons. I've done very difficult things that take a lot of willpower. Willpower was not the issue with me, not at all. I'm trying to think if this thing is sitting correctly. Sorry, my mic. Willpower is not the problem at all. There's a psychological problem in your brain, and it's a spiritual problem. And you're not just going to fix it by saying no and staying in the environment that you currently are, with your current friends, with the current habits that you have and all of that. But yeah, so I had to admit to myself that I'm an addict. And that is the foundational step. Once you do that, then all the work can progress properly. But if you don't do that, if you just say, yeah, I'm just doing this to, you tell your family, oh, I admit that I'm an addict, and you tell your girlfriend, but actually you're just in treatment so that you can get a job again and a girl again and, go on with your life normally. But you don't actually want to change, You don't actually want to change. If you're just doing it for other people, because I've seen a lot of times in rehabs like that as well. Ask a guy, what are you here for, and what are you looking forward to get out? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm just doing this for my wife, like I've hurt her so much, and I'm just doing this for my kids, and I've put them through so much, and but those are all the wrong answers. You'll only start recovering when you start doing it for yourself, because it doesn't look like it, but there's a deep self-love issue with addicts, a deep one. Although we hurt other people and we seem like we are narcissistic and we only care about how we feel, because we do only care about how we feel, that is the truth, but we don't love ourselves. It's plain and obvious for any addict. They will relate while watching this. So you have to admit to yourself that you're an addict, and you have to understand that you have a disease, although it's not a disease, but you have to treat it as a disease. And admitting to yourself is the foundational step of doing that. Second point that I want to make is a 12-step program. I know a lot of people don't do a 12-step program, and they do get sober without it, but there's a reason why it's the most successful program out there and why so many people stick to it, because it works and it covers every single thing that you need to go through from being an addict to getting sober. The people that don't do the 12-step program, they go through the process on their own in another way. But if you just want to make life simpler for yourself, just do a 12-step program, dude. Like it's there for a reason, and it's worked for millions for a reason. It covers everything from forgiving the people that you need to forgive, from revisiting the past experiences that you don't want to revisit, forgiving yourself, learning how to pray and meditate, even if you don't believe in a God, even if you don't believe in the Christian God or the Islam God or the Hindu, whatever. Praying doesn't mean necessarily you directing it to a specific God of a specific religion. That's why I love the 12-step program. You conceive your own higher power, whatever works for you at the beginning, because let's be honest, if you're an addict and your whole life has gone to shit and you are the one that have done it, most of it, especially the recent years, then it's kind of difficult to believe in an all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God, because how many times have you prayed? Even though you're not religious, how many times have you reached out and begged God to help you to get clean and to stop this? And if he can just get you through this, then you'll never use again. How many times have you done that? And yet still, it's not the way that it ended. So I understand that it's difficult, but the 12-step teaches you ways to meditate and to pray in your own terms, and that it really works. And these are things that I still do today. And I also understand that if I don't do these things today, that I will fall back. like I said, I understand that I have a disease, although it's not really a disease, but I have to treat it as such. And there's certain things that I know I have to do every single day. And if I don't do them, then I will regress. With recovery, there's no such thing as staying neutral. There's no such thing as, I'm just like idling. You are either moving forward or moving backward. It's one of the two. So yeah, 12-step program. If you can go to an outpatient program like Sanka. We have a place Sanka here in Nelspruit. That's where you can do a 12-step program. But the best, if you have the courage, I would say, is a long-term treatment facility, depending upon the severity of your addiction. But for me, that is what was necessary, and that is how I got right, was long-term treatment facilities. I spent about 2, almost 3 years in long-term treatment facilities, numerous ones. And like I said, I was rehabilitated 7 consecutive times before I got clean at my last one, which was the 8th time. So I was 8 treatment cycles, and it obviously it took a lot. People would give up on an addict after the 3rd time or 4th time, but for me it took 8. I know of people that went to 16 that have been to over 20 rehabs and then only gotten sober after that. So it's not the amount of times that is necessarily the sweet spot, but it's the personal choice after a while. And for some people, they need to be in recovery for years. I know of people that have been in an institution for 2 or 3 years, and that sounds scary. That sounds like I think some of you will even stop watching this video just hearing that. But for some, it's necessary. And if you ask them, will they do it again? They'll tell you yes, because they know that was the only way. Because like I said, your brain has built this pathway, this highway of how to get to happiness. And you need to unlearn that. And you cannot do that while you are still in your same environment. People, places, and things. Those are the 3 things that are triggers and that will make you go back to your previous life. People, places, and things. And you cannot be in a vulnerable position where you're still having cravings, extreme cravings. I still get cravings every now and again. Not nearly to the extent that I used to. But you cannot be in those places while you are still in that weak position. That's why a long-term treatment facility is, I will also always say, it is... It's the best idea if you're really a severe addict. If you're not, and you can see the signs of it coming, it's maybe better to go sooner rather than later. So yeah. Third point I want to make is I had to let go of my past life completely. Like I said, I was a skinny, weird kid. Then I got into bodybuilding, and never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would go so far in bodybuilding. I became the South African champion. I won a lot of other, really big competitive shows. My social media blew up. I got so much attention from this kid that never got attention. That was so weird. I'm still weird, but from this kid that never got attention, and now, I'm the guy, man. People want to be me. People come to me to ask for advice, and I held on to that for dear life, even though, my life was falling apart internally and with my relationships on social media and on other, levels, it seemed great. But, I didn't want to let go of that. And part of truly recovering means letting go of your past life. The things that you don't necessarily want to let go of. The small things as well, the music that you listen to. The friends that you currently have that have the same behaviors. A lot of the times you're necessarily going to have to move as well. Although moving itself will not help anything, because you can't move away from yourself. I've moved a lot as well. During my addiction, I moved from Nelspruit to Scottburgh to Durban to Kokstad to Pretoria back to Nelspruit. I've moved around, and the common denominator is always you. You can't move away from yourself. So you have to let go of all those things that you don't necessarily want to let go, and it's gonna suck, man. Because it's gonna feel like, because you are ripping away, most of your life, especially the substance, because the girl that I was with at the time before just the start of the peak of my addiction, I loved her more than my mother. I loved her a lot, like really, really a lot. And when I was on a down, when my cocaine habit, like when I got high and when I got down, it didn't matter if you were my closest friend or the love of my life or the career that I built. in that moment, whatever I had to push out of the way or manipulate or abuse or hurt to get what I want, which was my fix, which was another bag of Coke, I would gladly, abuse, manipulate, hurt them to get what I want, because that is the thing that was most valuable to me. That is the thing that filled me the most, that gave me true contentment and peace and fulfilled me the most. I would steal money out of my girlfriend's handbag while she's asleep just to get another fix. And the next morning she'd wake up and scream and cry, and I would act like nothing happened. I would steal money out of the vault, the safe at my job that I had. Love the job. I love the guy that gave me the job. We were like brothers, basically. I'd steal money out of there with the cameras watching. I didn't care because I needed my fix now. I'd rip off my clients. I would lie to them. I did do all these things. It didn't matter who stood in my way. And I love what Brandon Novak says also with regards to that. He says that it wasn't personal, it was just business. It's not that I hated you or wanted to hurt you. You was just standing in front of the thing that I needed and wanted the most. So yeah, you have to let go of your past life, because obviously it's not working. And for those of you that have recovered and have fallen back, I can tell you now, it's because you were exposed again to things of either your past life or similar to your past life. And because you were still in a weak and vulnerable position, you weren't strong enough to resist it, and therefore you fell back. So if you get out of a long-term treatment facility and you get back and you are still exposed to your friends, from your past life, you listen to music again that you used to, you watch porn again, something small like that, watching porn again, all things like this, the chance that you'll relapse is quite high. So with me, I had to decide that I need to make a change. I need to make a drastic change, and that meant a change in my career as well. So I gave up my career as a bodybuilder, and in my time during my last treatment facility, I decided I'm gonna study theology and psychology. So I did that. I gave up the bodybuilding. I went through a whole new direction, starting to studying theology and psychology. It's been life-changing for me. Obviously, with the new career path, I've surrounded myself with new friends. I've picked up new habits as well. So I still gym. I still do training, although it doesn't look like as big as I used to, but I still have something left. But I do CrossFit now, something that I never thought I'd do, because bodybuilders always make fun of CrossFitters. I do CrossFit now. I do ultra trail running. I've exposed myself to so many new different things, and with that, new people as well, with better habits and with better mindsets. That very cliche quote of "you really are the sum of your 5 closest friends." It's really the truth. It is really the truth. And it's gonna be so difficult at first, man, to be honest, because I was part of a couple of rough people, like drug dealers, like anabolic dealers, people that deal pharmaceuticals, So I always felt like so badass, like I was untouchable, and driving with people with very nice cars, and I had a nice car myself. And to go from that place to a place where I'm now surrounded by people that don't care about these things. We don't care about how bad you think you are, or how many people you can hurt, or what nice car you drive, or all of that. To go to that switch immediately, it's not an easy thing, and it's not an overnight thing as well. That's why a long-term treatment facility helps with that pathway, because you first get the healing that you need to get different values. And when you value different things, then you're able to fit in with a new group of people. But you can't that's why people that, tell addicts, you need to immediately just get away from your friends that you have now, just go to church and just get new friends. It's not as easy as that, because their values have not changed. So they first need to do the internal work so that they can wake up to what actually matters in life. And once their values have changed, then they can start to fit in with a new group. Maybe, actually, while I'm talking right now, I do actually can see how exposure to people and such people at an early place in their recovery can help as well, without going to a treatment facility. Depends on how far along their addiction they are. But the point I'm trying to make is, that I want to come back to is you have to let go of your past life. And that's one of the most difficult things to do. And that's part of admitting to yourself that you are an addict that needs help. It's part of admitting that. I also do continuous therapy. Along with a new direction for my life. I still go to Sanka. I still go for a test once a month. When I got out, it was once every week. After my long-term treatment facility, it was once every week. From there on, it went to once every 2 weeks. And now it's once a month. And on top of that, I also see a psychologist once a month, which I'm very blessed with. At Sanka, I pay like 100 Rand for every session. And the psychologist, at least, I'm very blessed. He doesn't really ask me much or anything, to be honest. At least I'm not naming his name. So, but yeah, I'm very blessed to have that. And for some of you that don't have the funds to get that treatment, there are a lot of places and people that do these kind of things for free. So and I understand that some people are, live in very rural areas, so they don't have to necessarily have the access that they would want, but there is always someone that can help you, that can listen, that can give you feedback. You're just gonna have to use what you have and do what you can. Very two important things that I've learned in my life as well. Don't look for excuses as to why you can't continue with recovery, or why you can't get to the best treatment facility, or why you can't get the help that you need. Use what you have and do what you can. Other things as well is I still journal, I still meditate, I still pray. Although my beliefs have changed since the beginning of my studying theology up until now. To be quite frank, I don't believe in everything that the churches do. I've been aware of what actually goes on there, and I don't also necessarily interpret the Bible as most Christians do. A lot of it, I don't interpret it as literally as they do. A lot of it, I see more psychological aspects that you can draw from it, as opposed to taking everything literally. And that has helped me a tremendous amount, because that's also a place where a lot of addicts, kick against, because they put you into a recovery center and they indoctrinate you with this version of Christianity or Islam or whatever they want you to believe. And then you go from believing these fake values that have forced you to become an addict to believing other fake values. And it doesn't work. So whenever you get into an institution, you take from the stuff that they teach and see what you can draw from it as psychologically, and what can benefit you. Like I said, you don't have to literally believe in everything that they say, because there's a lot of weird stuff that happens in the Bible. That's not easy to digest. Like I said as well, it's difficult to believe in an all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God when your life is currently in the way that it is. I've learned how to interpret these things and how to apply it to my life as practically as possible without being indoctrinated by the ways of the world. Because unfortunately, we do live in a world that produces addicts. That is, I know that sounds like a lot of self-justifying behavior, like, I'm just an addict because that's the way the world is. But it really is the truth. We live in a society that constantly tells us that we are not enough, that we need more, and we are not stimulated in the way that we are supposed to be. So especially with religion, you need to be able, you can only start doing this once you really get healed internally, but you need to be able to see what things you can apply to your life and what things you must discard, because you can quickly go from forming part of one drug cult to another religious cult if you're not aware of what's actually going on. And that takes a very strong, aware, independent individual, because that would mean that you're going to have to, for some time, go through a very lonely road, because not a lot of people are aware of that. They just want to belong to a group, whether it's part of a group that's using drugs or a very religious group. They just want to feel like they belong. And the unfortunate truth is, to be waken up to the truth, that means you're going to be walking a lonely road at first. Along the way, you'll find the others, But yeah, I'm going into a whole nother direction now for this video. Two last points that I want to make is my temptation didn't vanish. I still get temptations every now and again, not nearly as much as I used to, and not nearly as strong as I used to. And it is also when I am in the presence of people that I used to be before while using, the places that I used to be before, the music that I listened to, and all these things. So that's why, you know, I can kind of, I'm in a strong enough position now to even be at a bar. And I've been to weddings where people drink, you know, some of my family drinks as well. I'm strong enough now to be in the presence of these things and not have it take over. But at the beginning, I wasn't strong enough. So you can't get out of a long-term treatment facility and just think you can go sit at a bar with your friends and not drink. That's not going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen. So you need to be aware of that. You need to be aware of your temptations and stay away from the places that you shouldn't be, especially in your early recovery. And the last thing that I want to mention is that I stay humble. As much, I know that's very humble of me to say that I'm staying humble, but I really try to, because I have to once again understand that I am not bigger than my recovery. And addiction is something that kills people. Like, this is not something that just, you know, this is not a small thing. This is something that kills people every single day. And I have to remind myself of that. I have to remind myself that if I slip, if I don't do the things every day that I'm supposed to be doing, then I'm going to fall back. So I always check on myself. I always check, you know, am I doing the right things? How is my heart? Am I internally okay? Like, are my relationships with my family right? Because I'll make a whole nother video of that, but adapting to my family was a big thing as well. Like, the trust that I had to rebuild, because I've stolen things from them as well. I have to constantly, every day, check, you know, how am I feeling? Am I doing okay? What's something that's bothering me? Is there one of the 12 steps that I need to go back to? Because the 12-step program, it's an ongoing process. You know, you go through it once in rehab, but then after that, you still do it practically during your life. So I have to keep checking in with myself. But yeah, that's it for now. I'm not going to make this video too long. I'll go into more depth on another one. But you're not a moral failure. You are not a weak person. You don't have a lack of willpower because you're an addict. Addiction is just a response to human suffering. And you need to learn the ways and be surrounded by people that will help you learn the ways of learning to love yourself again, of learning to love life again, of learning to connect to yourself, to people, and to God again. That's it. You just need to learn these things. All right? There's not some big decision that you just have to go through right now or whatever. You just need to be taught, be supported, and be introduced to a new way of life. And I hope you have the courage to reach out and get help and allow people or a program to help you realize these things. Thank you for listening.